The hallowed halls of the United States Supreme Court are not the usual locale for discussions of sex scenes, nudity, and four-letter words. But in our first story on the countdown, the session of the High Court on Tuesday was described as rocking and rollicking in a case brought by the Federal Communications Commission against Fox television stations for broadcasting fleeting expletives by celebrities at award shows on the channel. The justices considered whether the government can regulate content deemed indecent on the public airwaves. In a 1978 case, FCC versus Pacifica Foundation, the court ruled that the FCC can require broadcasters to restrict George Carlin's 7 dirty words routine. For a quarter century following that ruling, the FCC narrowly enforced the indecency precedent. That is, until 2004, when the commission ramped up its enforcement of forbidden expression, so that even one transgression, if vulgar enough, would bring a hefty fine for the broadcaster. There seems to be little interest on the bench in overhauling the current system and overruling its own previous precedent. Justice Samuel Alito Jr. suggested publicly during oral arguments that the court should not even bother if the whole medium is going to fade into oblivion soon anyway. He said, broadcast TV is living on borrowed time. It is not going to be long before it goes the way of vinyl records and 8-track tapes. So why not let this die a natural death? The Decency Caucus on the bench, made up of Chief Justice Roberts and Justices Anthony, Kennedy, Alito, and Scalia, didn't feel much friction from the other justices on the indecency issue, while Justice Sonia Sotomayor recused herself. In a telling slip, Chief Justice Roberts said, all we are asking for, before correcting himself, what the government is asking for, is a few channels where you are not going to hear the S word, the F word. For more on all things indecent, let's bring in comedian and actor Christian Finnegan. Christian, thanks for your time tonight.
Hi, David.
Justice Alito, during discussion in court on Tuesday, questioned that if the court allows the First Amendment to trump decency, what will people who watch Fox be seeing between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m.? Are they going to be seeing a lot of people parading around in the nude and a stream of expletives? Could you have envisioned that Fox content would get any worse? And by the way, thanks to Justice Alito for the mental image.
Well, David, if you want to know what an uncensored version of Fox News would look like, all you have to do is read my dream journal. Of course, it wouldn't all be sexuality. A lot of it would just be profanity. Most of the programming during the day would just be Sean Hannity screaming expletives at an immigrant. But then there would be some adult content as well. Of course, we'd bookend the day. We'd start off with Fox and Friends with benefits, and then we'd end the night with Bill O'Reilly's Tales of the Golden Loofah. And who's that peeking in from the bushes? Oh, it's Judge Andrew Napolitano. He doesn't just like to watch. He likes to freedom watch. I'm telling you, David, it's going to be a slippery slope, a very slippery slope.
Clarence Thomas, as usual, said nothing yesterday and during the hearing. If we could read Clarence's mind, what would he be thinking about indecency on TV?
Well, I was hoping that now, if the indecency laws get changed, maybe we could finally learn what that whole pubic hair and a can of Coke joke was. 20 years, I've been wondering, like, is it like a funny you had to be there joke, or is it like a joke? I still don't totally get that. I think Clarence Thomas is smart enough to know that it's like, okay, indecency, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. There is nothing to be gained by me talking. But I do have a friend who was in court and peeked behind the bench today. That was not a gavel, and yes, he was very happy to see you.
Former Solicitor General Seth Waxman, who represents ABC in this case, he argued that the indecent policy is too vague, that, for instance, the FCC has taken action against ABC for its opening coverage of the last Olympics because ABC's coverage included a statue that had bare breasts and buttocks. Do you personally find bronzed parts of the human anatomy offensive?
Well, I think we all know that bronze is the sluttiest of all precious metals and alloys. Think about it. You hear the word gold, you think of like Betty White and the Golden Girls. You think of bronze, you think of like the cast of Jersey Shore, and that is much skankier. A lot of those statues in the Olympics are very slutty. Have you ever been to a courtroom lately? It's hard not to get turned on with all the exposed bosoms and all of that. By the way, I didn't know, you just mentioned that Justice Sotomayor recused herself from an indecency trial. It kind of makes you want to party with her, doesn't it?
Well, why do you think that she recused herself? I mean, other than the obvious.
I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to jump on the Google machine and select private browsing.
Maybe it was not about case law. In any case, do you think the Supreme Court will actually relieve the FCC of its responsibility to patrol the airwaves? And would we start seeing, for instance, I mean, what would we see on Sesame Street if that happened?
David, I see what you're trying to do right now. You're trying to get me to speak ill of a cherished children's television landmark. Yeah, sure, I could make some crass joke about what's Oscar doing in his trash can, or I could talk about what part is Elmo going to want you to tickle now, or I could say that today's episode is sponsored by the letters F and U and the number 69, but I'm not going to do that, David, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
The Supreme Court should be ashamed for not allowing us to actually see televised broadcasts of their court hearings, the oral arguments, as they like to say, and maybe oral is not such a good word in describing the story. But if we saw the justices in person, for those who were not actually in the Great Hall for the arguments, what kind of like facial expressions, or how do you think they were sort of handling what to some of them must be icky stuff, right?
I imagine that there was a lot of kind of like, you know, a lot of clearings of the throats, a lot of funny, well, I'm not interested in this kind of thing. I'm just asking theoretically, you know, if I was going to turn on like something uncensored, like what kinds of things would I see? But we'll all have to wonder. We're all going to have to wait for the, you know, dramatic readings.
Yeah,
so
or the Supreme Court does release audio recordings, and so maybe we'll have to see if there's, you know, listen to them and see if there's any heavy breathing.
Hopefully set to some sort of like hip-hop beat, if possible. It'd be quite a mashup.
Christian Finnegan.
That's what the kids call them, right? Mashups? I think so.
Yeah, maybe even mashup's not the right word we should use for the story either, but in any case. Christian Finnegan, comedian, actor. Christian, thank you so much for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
No. Thank you.
Okay, good to see you. And that is our show for tonight. I'm David Schuster, and of course, stay with us for all the latest political coverage. The mashup, in Christian's words, that is the Republican caucus and primary system, that continues. And of course, we'll have another full report on that tomorrow night. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great night.